My teenage daughter screamed, "I'm going to live with Dad. At least he doesn't ruin everything." She moved out after I refused to let her drop out at 16. 3 years later, she called sobbing from rehab, begging me to pick her up from the mess her father had enabled. All right, here's the first part of your story. My name's Laura, I'm 42 years old, female, and I still remember the exact pitch of my daughter's voice the night she screamed at me. It wasn't just a teenage tantrum. It was the kind of scream that carved into your bones, words like knives. "I'm going to live with Dad. At least he doesn't ruin everything." And then she slammed her bedroom door so hard the frame cracked. Her name's Emily, 16 at the time. My only daughter. My whole world. She'd been slipping away from me for a while. Less eye contact, more sighs when I asked her to do her homework. A constant hum of resentment every time I told her no. But that night, that was the fracture. That was the point where my daughter stopped being my daughter and decided her father, Jake, my ex-husband, was the savior she wanted. Jake was always the fun parent. That's why we divorced. He didn't know how to say no, not to her, not to anyone. Bills piled up, his promises evaporated, and when I'd confront him, he'd act like I was the monster for not wanting to play along. When Emily was little, I kept things balanced. She'd come home with glitter projects, sugary cereal, and bedtime stories from Jake's weekends, and I'd be the one making sure her immunizations were scheduled, her clothes fit, her homework was done. She never saw the quiet grind it took to keep her stable. She only saw the boring mom who ruined the fun. The fight that night was over school. She'd started skipping classes, grades plummeting. She came into the kitchen with this wild look in her eyes, slammed her books on the table, and told me she wasn't going back. Just like that. "School is pointless," she said. "I'm dropping out. Dad says you don't need school if you're smart. He said I can help him with his business and actually make money instead of wasting time." Jake didn't have a business. He had a string of failed ideas, side hustles that burned out before they even lit. At the time, it was some half-baked plan about flipping used cars without licenses or paperwork. But to Emily, it sounded like freedom. To me, it was a death sentence. I told her no, not gently. I slammed my hand down on the table so hard the salt shaker tipped over. "Absolutely not. You are not throwing away your education at 16. I don't care what your father tells you. This is not happening." That's when she screamed it. Her face twisted into something I didn't recognize, red and trembling, eyes brimming with this violent betrayal. She said I was controlling. I ruined everything fun. I never believed in her. She yelled that Dad understood her, that Dad wanted her around, that Dad didn't make her feel like a prisoner. And then she packed. I watched her shove clothes into a duffel bag, ripping shirts off hangers like she was escaping a burning building. I stood in the doorway, shaking, my throat closing. I begged. I actually begged my own daughter to stay. She looked at me like I was a stranger, slung the bag over her shoulder and spat, "I don't need you." Jake was in the driveway 5 minutes later, leaning on his crappy car horn like some knight in shining armor. He didn't even come inside. Didn't face me. Just idled at the curb with his music blasting while my daughter stormed out, dragging her life behind her. I stood at the window with my hand on the glass and watched her leave. I knew in my gut I'd lost her. And worse, I knew Jake would feed every ugly narrative she'd built about me until she hated me completely. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in her empty room staring at the posters on the walls, the mess on her desk, the strands of hair caught in her hairbrush. It already felt like a museum of a girl I wasn't sure I'd ever get back. The weeks after Emily left felt like living in a house that had been gutted by fire. Her room was untouched, but empty in all the ways that mattered. No footsteps up the stairs, no slammed doors, no muffled music seeping under her door. Just silence, and the occasional text from Jake, gloating. At first, she wouldn't even answer my calls. The one time she did, it was on speaker. I heard Jake in the background, laughing, feeding her lines. "Tell her you're fine. Tell her you're happy you're here. Tell her you don't need her rules." She parroted every word, her voice sharp and cold, like she'd swallowed all of his poison whole. I hung up before she could finish. School called a week later. She hadn't been showing up. I drove straight to Jake's place, this dingy rental with beer cans in the yard and a half-dead lawn. Emily was sitting on the couch with her legs pulled up, scrolling on her phone, makeup smeared, eyes defiant. She's fine, Jake slurred from the kitchen, cracking a beer at 11 a.m. She's homeschooled now, learning real life. Homeschooled. He meant YouTube, late nights, and no boundaries. I tried to reason with him, voice shaking, but he just started shouting. You think you're better than me? You ruined this kid's life with your rules. She doesn't need you anymore. When I turned to Emily, she wouldn't even look at me, just muttered, "Go home, Mom," and pulled a blanket over her head. That was the first time I cried in my car until I couldn't breathe. From there, everything spiraled. Emily stopped answering me completely. On social media, she posted selfies with captions about finally being free and living with the parent who gets me. Every like, every heart from her friends was another knife in my ribs. I tried to get custody reversed. My lawyer warned me it would be a nightmare. Emily was old enough to sway the court, and if she told them she wanted to live with Jake, judges usually honored it. I still filed, still dragged myself through hearings where Jake showed up in wrinkled shirts, smirking, spinning stories about how I was the controlling, bitter ex-wife who couldn't let go. The judge sided with Emily's choice. Temporary custody to Jake. My daughter actually smiled when the order was read, like she'd won something. And then the phone calls started. Neighbors reporting loud fights at Jake's place, cops showing up for noise complaints, Emily spotted stumbling drunk at 2 a.m. Jake dismissed it all as teenage growing pains. He told anyone who would listen that I was just a bitter mother jealous that my daughter didn't love me anymore. Meanwhile, I was waking up every night at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, imagining her lying in a ditch somewhere. I'd drive past his house just to see if her light was on. Sometimes it was, sometimes not. Every time it was dark, my heart stopped. The breaking point came when the school counselor called me directly. Emily hadn't been in a classroom for over 2 months. She was failing everything. The counselor whispered into the phone, "Laura, I'm worried about her. You need to do something." But I couldn't. Not legally. Jake had full control and Emily wanted nothing to do with me. I started living with a permanent knot in my stomach, waiting for the call I dreaded most. And when it finally came, 3 years later, it wasn't from the school or the police. It was from Emily herself, sobbing, voice hoarse, begging me to come get her. From rehab. Don't forget to subscribe. When Emily called from rehab, I almost didn't recognize her voice. It wasn't the sharp, angry teenager who once screamed she didn't need me. It was broken, jagged, like every word was scraped out of her throat. "Mom, please, please come. I don't want to be here anymore. I can't do this. I need you." I froze. I had dreamed about her calling me, reaching out, but in those dreams she was just homesick, or ready to come home. Not this. Not begging from some facility hours away. When I got there, the sight of her gutted me. Her hair was stringy, her arms too thin, her skin pale and blotchy. She looked older than 19, but also terrifyingly small. When she saw me, she collapsed into my arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. I'd imagined our reunion 1,000 times, but not like this. Not with her reeking of antiseptic and desperation. In between tears, she spilled the truth. The freedom at her dad's house had been a freefall. Parties every weekend. Jake supplying booze to Emily and her friends because better they drink here than out on the streets. His friends hanging around too, much older, much worse. One of them introduced her to pills. At first it was just fun. Then it was every day. Then it was the only way she could feel normal. She dropped out completely at 17, convinced by Jake that school was pointless. By 18, she was crashing on couches, skipping meals, and Jake was still telling anyone who asked that she was independent and doing her own thing. The physical damage came fast. Emily's teeth started chipping. She had constant nosebleeds. She was fired from 2 jobs for not showing up. Eventually, one of her so-called friends left her half-conscious in a gas station bathroom. Cops found her, and that's how she landed in rehab. She grabbed my hands with a grip that was almost frantic. I thought Dad was on my side, but he just let everything happen. He didn't care. He let me ruin myself. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The words I'd been aching to hear for 3 years, and they hurt worse than silence. Because now they came wrapped in devastation. Jake, of course, tried to spin it. When he found out I'd picked her up, he showed up at my house that night, pounding on the door, shouting loud enough for the neighbors to call me later. You turned her against me. She's weak because of you, not me. You poisoned her. When I opened the door, he was red-faced, half-drunk, pointing like he wanted to shove me against the wall. I didn't back down this time. I stood between him and Emily, who was curled on the couch crying. You don't get to come in here, I said. You've done enough. That set him off. He kicked the porch railing so hard a board cracked, spit flying as he screamed. You think you're better than me? She chose me. She wanted to live with me. You'll never erase that. I didn't rise to it. I just locked the door and let him scream himself hoarse until finally he stumbled off into the night. Inside, Emily whispered, He doesn't love me, does he? He just wanted to win against you. That was the first night she slept in her old bed again. But even then, I could see it. Her body twitching, sweat soaking through the sheets. Withdrawal. She wasn't safe yet. And I knew Jake wasn't done. He never let go quietly. Emily's first weeks back home were brutal. She'd wake up drenched in sweat, shaking, vomiting so hard I thought she'd choke. I sat beside her with cold towels and water, whispering, Just breathe, baby, just breathe, while she clawed at the sheets and begged me not to leave her. But the worst wasn't her body breaking down. It was Jake. He started calling nonstop, 20, 30 times a day. When I blocked his number, he switched phones. When I stopped answering, he left voicemails, screaming, crying, sometimes slurring drunk. You kidnapped my daughter. She's mine. She doesn't need you. Then, 10 minutes later, Laura, please don't shut me out. We can fix this together. His voice swung between rage and desperation like a pendulum, and every time my phone buzzed, my stomach dropped. It didn't stop at calls. He showed up at Emily's rehab group once, trying to get in, yelling that he had a right to support his kid. The staff had to physically escort him out. Emily saw it all, her father red-faced, spitting, pounding on the glass, and she shook so badly they had to sedate her. Then came the vandalism. One morning I found my car keyed from headlight to taillight, deep gouges spelling out bitch. Another time, all 4 of my tires were slashed. I knew it was him. I could smell the spite all over it, but cops just shrugged. No proof. He escalated again. I came home from work to find Emily sobbing on the kitchen floor, holding her phone. Jake had posted a rant on Facebook, tagging half the family. Laura brainwashed Emily, ripped her from my home, and turned her against me. She was thriving with me until Laura dragged her into drugs and rehab. Ask yourselves who the real parent is. That post exploded. Old friends, relatives, even neighbors messaged me, some siding with him, others disgusted. Emily read the comments, people calling her a liar, a junkie, saying she was better off with her dad. And she crumpled. I had to pry the phone out of her hands before she smashed it against the wall. 2 nights later, he crossed the line from harassment into danger. I woke at 2 a.m. to banging on my door. Not knocking, banging. I peeked through the blinds and saw Jake on my porch holding something. When the porch light hit it, my blood froze. It was Emily's old duffel bag, the one she'd left with 3 years ago. He dumped it onto the steps, clothes, shoes, a framed photo of the 3 of us from before the divorce, then kicked it across the yard screaming, "This is all you left me with. Trash. That's what you turned her into." Emily was behind me, trembling, whispering, "Mom, please don't let him in." I called the cops. By the time they showed up, Jake was gone. The officer took a statement, glanced at the trashed yard, and sighed. Messy divorce, huh? That was all. No arrest, no charges, just paperwork. Emily sat at the kitchen table after they left, staring at the broken photo frame, glass scattered across the linoleum. She didn't cry this time. She just said, in this flat, hollow voice, "He'll never stop, Mom. Not until you make him." Her words hung in the air like a dare. And I knew then. I couldn't just wait for Jake to burn out. He thrived on chaos, and he'd keep wrecking her until there was nothing left. I had to end it. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow. I didn't expect so many of you to care, or to DM me, or to call Jake every name under the sun. Some of you had me ugly laughing in my kitchen at 2 a.m. when I should have been sleeping. One guy said, Jake sounds like the kind of dad who thinks Miller Lite is a food group. Dead accurate. But honestly, reading your responses cracked something open in me. I've been walking around for years swallowing this quiet guilt, like maybe I really was the controlling, joy-killing parent he painted me to be. And then all of you, strangers, just lit him up in ways I couldn't say out loud without shaking. Thank you. A lot of you said, get a restraining order. I tried. Judge looked me dead in the eye and said, he hasn't physically hurt you or your daughter. Like vandalized cars, midnight screaming, and public smears don't count. That's the reality. Jake knows exactly how to dance right under the line of actionable. Others said, cut him off, go no contact. I wish it were that easy. Jake doesn't understand, no. To him, silence is an invitation to scream louder. He'll keep escalating until the whole block is watching. Until Emily is too scared to leave the house. Until I break. And some of you, God, I love you, said, make him choke on his own lies. Don't just survive him, expose him. That stuck. Because here's the thing, Jake's whole weapon has always been the story. He spins narratives like a spider. Me as the villain, Emily as the victim turned rebel, himself as the misunderstood fun dad. He convinces people. He convinced Emily. He convinced half the court. But what happens if his story gets ripped apart in public? What happens if all the dirt he's tried to hide, his drinking, his enabling, his chaos, comes out where he can't control it? I've been keeping notes, screenshots, voicemails, police reports, even those rehab intake papers Emily signed when she begged for help. I never planned to use them. I thought courts or common sense would protect her. They didn't. So maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to use his own playbook against him. Loud, messy, public. Emily asked me last night, Mom, what if he never stops? And I promised her something I hadn't dared promise in years. Then we'll stop him. She actually smiled. Tired, broken, but real. And I swear, that one smile lit up something inside me I thought was dead. So buckle up, Reddit, because Jake thinks he's the only one who can cause chaos. He has no idea what's coming. Once I decided to fight Jake on his own turf, publicly, I stopped playing defense. First step, gather evidence. I already had piles of it, screenshots of his drunk texts, voicemails where he screamed about me stealing his daughter, the police reports from his late-night porch meltdowns, and the rehab paperwork that directly stated Emily's addiction was fueled by an enabling parental environment. That one sentence alone was a knife. But I needed something undeniable, something that would blow past his excuses. That came sooner than I expected. Emily's old friend Kayla reached out after hearing she was back home. She told me she'd stopped hanging out with Emily because Jake was always around when they partied. He'd sit in the kitchen while we drank. Sometimes he bought it for us. We were 16. My hands shook as I typed everything she said into a statement and then asked if she'd back it up. Kayla didn't hesitate. Whatever helps Emily. Second step, the audience. Jake thrived on Facebook, airing dirty laundry for sympathy. Fine. I'd take his stage and burn it down. I created a private album called The Truth About Jake and invited every family member, mutual friend, and even some of the neighbors he'd manipulated. I didn't say a word, just uploaded. First post, the rehab intake form, with Emily's permission. Highlighted line about parental enabling. Second post, a stitched-together audio clip of Jake's voicemails, him screaming, crying, threatening, contradicting himself. Unedited, raw. Third post, Kayla's signed statement, paired with a photo of Emily at 16, smiling embraces captioned, "This is who Jake let drink in his kitchen." The effect was immediate. My phone lit up like fireworks. Texts, calls, messages. Jake's sister wrote, "Oh my God, I didn't know." His own cousin commented under the voicemails, "Jake, you need help. This is disgusting." And then came Jake's response. Predictable, violent. He showed up at my work the next day, red-faced, storming through the lobby while shouting my name. He tried to grab my arm, screaming, "You ruined me! You ruined my life!" Security dragged him out while coworkers gawked. Later, I learned someone recorded it. Within hours, it was online, spreading with the rest of the evidence. Jake wasn't just exposed now, he was humiliated. That night, Emily sat next to me, scrolling through the comments. For the first time in years, she didn't look broken. She looked vindicated. "They finally see him," she whispered. "They finally see what I saw." But victory came with fallout. Jake didn't disappear into the shadows. He doubled down. The very next week, I woke up to find spray paint across my garage. Liar. And Emily's bedroom window had been shattered with a rock. Jake wasn't done. He was cornered, and a cornered man is dangerous. After the spray paint and the broken window, Emily stopped flinching. She got angry. "This is what he does, Mom," she said, sweeping glass off her carpet. "He ruins everything and expects us to crawl back. I'm not crawling back." There was steel in her voice I hadn't heard in years. Rehab hadn't just broken her, it hardened something. Jake, though, was unraveling. 2 nights later, my neighbor banged on my door at midnight. "Laura, your ex is parked down the street. Been there for hours." I peeked through the blinds. His rusted sedan sat under the streetlight, headlights off, silhouette visible in the driver's seat. He wanted us to know he was watching. I called the cops, again. By the time they arrived, he was gone. They shrugged. Not illegal to park on a public street? The next morning, I found our mailbox ripped out and tossed into the ditch. A few days later, Emily's phone lit up with a string of private numbers. Voicemails again. Only this time, he wasn't screaming. He was whispering. Low, chilling. "You'll never be safe from me. You'll always be mine." She dropped the phone like it burned her. That's when I knew waiting for the system to fix it was useless. Jake wasn't just being dramatic. He was stalking us. If I didn't end it, he'd escalate until someone got hurt. So, Emily and I made a choice. We were going to hit back together. We set traps. I installed security cameras around the house, hidden but clear enough to catch his face. Emily saved every message, every call, every threat. We started building a wall of evidence so high even the cops couldn't ignore it. And then, the perfect opportunity landed in our laps. Jake showed up at Emily's rehab meeting again, drunk, trying to shove his way past the receptionist. Security restrained him, but not before he screamed, "She's my daughter! She belongs with me!" Half the waiting room filmed it. Videos went online within hours. The comments under the clips were savage. Strangers dragged him, locals recognized him, and even his drinking buddies distanced themselves. His fun dad mask had cracked wide open, and everyone saw the mess underneath. Still, he wasn't done. That night, while Emily and I were eating dinner, we heard glass shatter. The living room window exploded inward, beer bottle with a rag stuffed inside. Not lit, thank God, but enough to terrify. Emily didn't scream. She picked up the bottle, held it up to the porch light, and said, "He just gave us what we need." Because here's the thing, our cameras caught everything. Him creeping around the side yard, arm cocked, throwing the bottle through the window. I sent the footage to the police. This time, they couldn't shrug. They showed up at his place and hauled him out in cuffs. For the first time in years, the house was quiet. No calls, no pounding on the door, no shadow in the street. Emily slept through the night. So did I. But quiet doesn't last forever with Jake. Update 2. Okay, Reddit. Holy hell. I didn't expect part of this to blow up the way it did. Y'all have been flooding my inbox with everything from legal advice to where can I Venmo you for new tires, to one guy who just wrote, "Adopt me. I'll never scream I'm moving in with Dad." Made Emily laugh so hard she nearly spit her orange juice. So, quick catch-up. Yes, Jake was actually arrested. The footage of him throwing that bottle through our window was enough to finally push the cops off their asses. They booked him for property damage and harassment. He spent a night in county before his brother bailed him out. Emily watched the whole thing from our living room window, arms crossed, whispering, "Finally." But here's the part that made my jaw drop. The very next morning, Jake's sister called me. Not to yell, not to defend him, to apologize. She'd seen the videos online, heard the voicemails, saw the police haul him away. She said, "Laura, I didn't believe you before. I thought you were bitter, but I can't defend him anymore." Then she cried. This woman who hadn't spoken to me in 3 years actually cried on the phone. That's when it hit me. We'd won the narrative war. Jake can't hide behind his stories anymore. His family, his friends, our neighbors, they all saw him for what he really is. Of course, some of y'all in the comments went nuclear with your suggestions. Burn his house down. Tempting, but no prison orange for me. Send the videos to his job so he can't pay bail next time. Already crossed my mind. Publicly read his voicemails at Thanksgiving dinner. Honestly, chef's kiss level of petty. The one that really stuck, though, was from a comment that said, "Make sure every door he tries to open is locked forever. Not with fire, but with truth." Because here's the thing, Jake isn't just going to disappear. He's slippery. He'll get out of charges, spin himself as the victim, try to weasel back into Emily's life when the dust settles. I know him. He thrives in shadows. So if he's going to stalk us, harass us, lurk around corners, fine. We'll shine every light on him until there's nowhere left for him to hide. I've got one last move planned. Something Jake can't scream or spin his way out of. Something loud enough, permanent enough, that even he can't pretend it didn't happen. Stay tuned, because next time I check in, it won't be about survival. It'll be about revenge. Jake getting arrested should have been the end, but of course it wasn't. He came out swinging, figuratively this time. Within days of posting bail, he plastered Facebook with posts about how I'd framed him. According to him, I'd faked the video, brainwashed Emily, and paid people to lie. He even dragged my name through some local parenting groups, calling me abusive. But here's the thing. Every lie he told just made what came next sweeter. I reached out to Emily's rehab counselor, her school counselor, and Kayla, her old friend who'd given me that statement. With their permission, I compiled everything into one package: screenshots, videos, voicemail transcripts, witness statements, police reports. I didn't just send it to the cops this time. I sent it to his job. Jake worked at a local car dealership. Sleazy place, all family values commercials while their salesman guzzled beers after work. I emailed the entire package to the dealership manager with the subject line, "This is who represents your company." 2 days later, Jake was out of a job. That alone would have been enough. But fate tossed me one more gift. A local community page picked up the rehab video, the one of him drunk and screaming outside, demanding Emily be handed over. It went viral in our town. Suddenly, everyone from the grocery store cashier to the lady at the library was whispering about that drunk who tried to break into a rehab. And then came the final nail. I contacted the judge who had dismissed my earlier request for a protective order. I dropped the updated evidence pile on his desk. This time, there was no shrugging. Emily and I were granted a full restraining order, 2 years minimum. Jake couldn't come within 500 feet of us without risking jail. But the sweetest revenge wasn't legal or viral. It was personal. Emily decided she wanted to speak for herself. She took her old Facebook account, the same one where she'd once posted about living free with Dad, and wrote a new post. A photo of her holding her 90-day sobriety chip, captioned, "My dad let me drink and use drugs at 16. He told me school didn't matter. He let me fall apart. My mom saved me. If you believe his lies, that's on you. But I'm done protecting him. I'm choosing myself, and I'm choosing her." It got hundreds of comments, support from friends, apologies from family. Even people who'd once defended Jake dropped everything to back her. When Emily showed me, her hands were shaking. "Do you think this was too much?" I hugged her. "No, baby. This is the truth, and the truth is never too much." That night, Jake tried one last trick. He texted me from a new number. "You think you won? You just turned my daughter against me. One day she'll see who the real enemy is." I didn't reply. Emily saw it on my phone, rolled her eyes, and said, "He already lost, Mom. He just doesn't know it yet." She was right. After Emily's post went viral, Jake's world collapsed faster than I ever could have orchestrated. His dealership cut ties completely. Word was, customers were calling demanding refunds, saying they wouldn't buy a car from the rehab dad. His landlord evicted him within the month. Neighbors reported constant screaming, cops being called, beer cans piling up in the yard. And the restraining order stuck. Twice he tried to drive past our house, slow and deliberate, but the cameras caught him both times. The police didn't shrug anymore. They arrested him on the spot. A judge extended the order to 5 years. The man who once crowed about being the fun parent was now a middle-aged wreck with no job, no daughter, no reputation. People crossed the street to avoid him. Meanwhile, Emily was rebuilding. She kept going to meetings, earning new sobriety chips. She got a part-time job at a bookstore. The first time she handed me her paycheck, tiny but hers, she grinned through tears and said, "I'm finally doing something right." I cried harder than I did when she was born. The best revenge wasn't Jake losing everything. It was Emily gaining herself back. One last thing sealed it. At Thanksgiving, my sister hosted dinner. Jake used to dominate those gatherings, loud and charming, making me look like the bitter ex. But this year, it was different. Emily stood up before dessert, holding her sobriety chip again, and said, "I want to thank my mom. She never gave up on me, even when I gave up on her. If you think my dad's stories about her are true, you're wrong. He didn't save me. She did." The room was silent. Then applause. Real, genuine applause. Jake's name didn't come up again all night. Later, Emily and I drove home, just the two of us. For the first time in years, she rolled down the window, let the cold air whip through her hair, and sang along to the radio. Loud, off-key, beautiful. I looked at her and realized Jake had lost. Not because he was jobless, not because his lies were exposed, but because the one person he fought so hard to keep away from me was sitting in my passenger seat, choosing me, choosing herself. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.